So why are we criticizing the NRI Desi baddies who attended Coachella for the wrong reasons? There are a lot of great reasons as a brown girl as to why you shouldn't attend Coachella, but what we're not gonna do is literally lie and call it tacky and unrevolutionary. If you don't know, Coachella is ultimately owned by a conservative old white man who actively funds the Republican Party, which is also actively trying to take away rights from women and LGBTQ plus people. So yeah, why are we as brown people paying money to attend this? A lot of the criticism that I'm seeing from the mainland Indians, but also unfortunately people who live in the West, is that they're calling out the authenticity of Indian craftsmanship, calling it a bad representation of Indian fashion, and that it's the whitewashed version of Indian fashion. This is the Indian diaspora. Fashion is a part of culture which has and will always evolve. Honestly, I understand why a lot of women in the homeland are upset because they probably don't have anywhere to safely dress the way we do here in the West. But I also see people from the West calling these outfits tacky. I can't help but just come to the conclusion that it's just jealousy. Some of these pieces were custom made, thousands of dollars. What are you talking about tacky? And not to be mean, but I go on some of these people's pages and it's nobody that I would be taking any sort of fashion advice from. I see comments like this. They claim they are representing South Asians and South Asian culture and that is somehow meaningful, ... Representing who exactly? By continuing to pander to the white gaze, and this inexplicable obsession with being a baddie. And bragging about the 500 hours of work on these outfits that they did not personally do. And erasing artisans completely from the conversation. These influencers only represent a certain vapid subculture that most normal people do not claim or align with. So obviously, I got some stuff to say because, I mean, look at me. Pandering to white culture and white people is actually insane. I'm not pandering to white people. I'm pandering to me and people like me. When I go out dressed, dripped in South Asian fashion, which I rarely do, I get stared at like I'm crazy. People have literally told me like, oh, that's too much, like white girlfriends and stuff like that. Wearing these textiles and showing my body in the way that I do is most definitely revolutionary, especially since I grew up in a very controlling household where I wasn't even allowed to wear spaghetti straps outside of my house, do anything to beautify myself and be American. It most certainly is revolutionary. I don't know about others, but I certainly sure as hell don't represent Tamil Nadu. I am just Tamil and American. So not everybody has like good experiences being raised in our culture and community. The only part of it that was pleasurable for me was like the aesthetics of it, like the bindis, the jewelry, and the textiles. Misogyny is so rooted in Hindu rituals. I grew up Hindu. Like even food was something that was like so controlled and forced onto me. Instead of just keeping the conversation around why are we as brown people funding a Republican, people would rather just call these outfits tacky, which makes no sense because if you don't like somebody's outfit, scroll by, don't wear it, move along. I do think a good point that they make is how are these artisans being compensated fairly for their work? I don't know for sure, but I do know that brands like Savarni Shop and Merchy by Kim both show like the BTS process of like how these designs are made. And I would love to know, and if they could disclose exactly what percentage, especially for these custom pieces of work that had to be done quickly, how much of the percentage that was given to you guys was actually given to the artisans themselves. Girl, because some of these pieces were thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money. I just feel like the bigger issue is the fact that like Republicans and men are ruining everything. Why aren't we focusing on that rather than trying to micromanage how these like influencers dress? Also, it's not cultural appropriation. It's my literal fucking culture. What are you guys on? Because y'all just sound jealous. I don't understand why you're mad. It's just jealousy at this point. It's so clearly jealousy. Which is so understandable. If you are a woman living in India, I can see why you're fucking mad. You can't go outside without being harassed by men all the time. Yeah, I'd be losing my fucking mind too if I saw girls that look like me but lived completely different lives than me simply because they were privileged enough to live in the West. But there are just some of you trifling hoes that live in the West who still hold on to these ideologies and y'all aren't like fashion influencers or anything like that. It's like, why the fuck would I take your advice with fashion? The only like valid points I see from people criticizing these girls going to Coachella is the ethics of why the fuck are you funding a Republican? Yes, why are we doing that? And are the artisans being fairly compensated for it? Because I feel like definitely buying from like a South Asian owned brand is way more sustainable and ethical compared to buying something from Shein, which these people are claiming that these influencers are, but all the influencers that I have seen and I have reposted, they're all wearing like South Asian owned brands. They're not fucking buying from Shein. Another criticism that I see a lot of these people say is, oh, but there are like so many different regional differences between like culture and textiles, and it's all just kind of like lumping it all together for like white people to better understand. And like I understand that argument a little bit better, but also at the same time, I hate when people say this, but it's really not that deep. Because first of all, there's not a lot of us like diaspora out here. I feel like just now, recently, there have been so many cool like events and like more of like a diaspora community that is like starting to like spring up, but it's still like we're not really like popping like out there right now. You know, I wish I could find a Tamil owned brand that makes clothes the way that I want to wear them, showing some extra skin, really cute. But as of right now in the moment, I can only find brands that do beadwork and stuff that's similar to like stuff we see in North India. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Also, I don't think we should be saying like, oh, I represent India, or like this person represents India. Lara Raj doesn't represent Indians. She's just Indian. She's just Tamil, and so am I. Like, I'm not representing nobody. I'm just being me. And if somebody can see themselves in me and that makes themselves feel better, amazing. But like, I'm not like the spokesperson for like Indian culture here in America. I'm creating my own culture. I'm creating, a vapid subculture, Indian American subculture. As I've said before, like, I understand why women in India themselves are, like, mad about this, because, I mean, they can't step outside without being so in fear of their life because of the way that Indian men act. But why the fuck are you living in the West, doing Western things, mad about it? Why are you trying to, like, uphold purity culture? It makes no fucking sense to me. The only thing that I can conclude is that you're fucking jealous. Like, why are you trying to set us back? Culture will evolve. You hoes are very trifling, and you need to get a life. And if you want to, like, criticize brown girls going to Coachella, how about you, like, actually come up with, like, good points instead of just sticking to the same old puritanical ideology type of fucking arguments. It's so irritating. Like, I don't owe authenticity to a culture that can't even stand up for itself years past the British colonization. Y'all want to claim that Indian culture is, like, puritanical and all this other stuff, when that's not even how our culture really was to begin with. Obviously, there are, like, some beautiful parts of my culture, but I think we tend to forget how fucked up our culture is at certain times. I don't owe my life to that. I'm making a new culture.